there's a big drive among developers to be solving these real world issues. We can build the most amazing projects, but if you don't have users, it's not going to work.
How can they actually get started into Web3?
Number one tip would be, if you're currently working in Web2 and you want to get into Web3, go and learn tons about my number one bit of advice. And this is really crucial. If you're a developer in Web2,
Job profiles for non-technical people.
so probably like a business development kind of role would be number one.
What are the key mistakes which these devs do?
Try and solve real world issues are the ones that are unsuccessful. So that's a big mistake that they make.
Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I have Jake with me. He is a program manager with Encode Club, which is one of the largest and best platforms to get involved with Web3 bootcamps and hackathons. He has mentored and evaluated hundreds of Web3 projects and knows what makes a successful Web3 startup. In this video, you will get to know how you can get started with your Web3 journey, how you can learn things, how you can implement things, and how you can land your first project. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get started. Do watch till the end to get the maximum benefit and watch at 1.5x.
I'm so lucky in the role that I have, because I was fairly new to crypto. I kind of only joined in January, and so for me it was where am I gonna, I guess, maximize my learning experience from a job in crypto, being non-technical, and so from being on the other side, it's unbelievable. I'm kind of working with these extremely intelligent minds of hackers that are building amazing projects, but then I'm also working kind of with the protocols. So I get kind of the best of both worlds. I get the best of the really experienced kind of crypto, and I get the best of kind of these new up and coming projects. And so from being on the other side, I get to see the full spectrum, which is cool. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of organization that happens behind the scenes that probably nobody sees. But no, I think I thoroughly enjoy my job, and definitely for the next kind of a while, enjoy the role of just learning. And I think that was the mindset going into the job.
Let's start with a little bit of your background and your Web3 journey.
I'm South African, and I clearly remember the first time I'd heard about about crypto and probably more Bitcoin than anything. It was probably, when was it? 2017, 2018, might have been the end of 2017, beginning of 2018.
The bull market when started.
Yeah, and my girlfriend, my partner, her dad is a day trader, and he came back to me and we were chatting about the kind of arbitrage opportunities of trading Bitcoin. And I remember I went back to my dad and I chatted about it as well. And I was at university still at the time, and my dad was like, "No, this is a Ponzi scheme. Don't get involved. Like, what are you thinking?" And like going off completely like non. I mean, his opinions changed kind of quite drastically now that he's become a bit more, I think, informed of the whole thing. But I guess for a lot of your kind of older generation, it was a bit scary at the time, trying to figure out this new technology, and it came out of nowhere. Everyone was making money, and nobody really knew how they were making money, and it was quite cool. So that was my first kind of experience with Web3, and it was a long time until I kind of got stuck in again. So I studied just outside Cape Town in South Africa at the University of Stellenbosch. I did accounting and kind of economics, more agricultural economics. Actually, I come from a bit of a farming background. And then I went over to St Andrews in Scotland, and I did my master's in finance there. Rugby was kind of always my passion, so I was pretty narrow-minded. Kind of rugby and studies was where I was at, and I didn't really have too many
Rugby
hobbies. That's it. Yeah, sorry.
Rugby you mentioned.
Yeah, rugby was kind of actually how I got to the UK. So I was a rugby player at university. And then I finished up at St Andrews, and I was applying for finance jobs. I moved down to London, moved in with my girlfriend, and she was living currently with a guy he had just started up his own kind of crypto derivatives trading platform called Float Capital. I don't know if you've heard of them. They actually came through Encode. And I was chatting to him, and he was like, "Why don't you look into crypto? Like, why don't you why do you want to stick in the traditional finance role?" And I was like, to be fair, yeah, I mean, what I have to lose. And I applied for a job at Encode, and I got on well with Anthony and Demir, and they offered me a job, and that's kind of how I got into crypto. So very lucky. It was just kind of more fate than anything. It was I was so lucky. And then I kind of joined knowing very, very little. I'd kind of done a bit more of research before I actually started, and got a bit more stuck into it. So when I started, I was kind of somewhat there, and then that's how I got into and I've been working at Encode. And as I said, it's the best kind of job I could have to learn from protocols and
So
learn
for
from kind of.
those who don't know, what exactly is Encode Club?
Encode Club is an educational kind of platform and community, and our goal is to kind of educate um, people coming into Web3, and we've done through a series of different programs. One being boot camps, another one being hackathons, another one being accelerators, another one being an educational series. And we'll kind of work with kind of some of the leading protocols within the space. For instance, giving an example, because we're working with Tezos at the moment, I can say Tezos comes to Encode. We kind of make a partnership, and we'll run an educational series on the Tezos blockchain, and then we'll move on to maybe a boot camp, and then into a hackathon, which has just gone on at the moment. We're about to have our finale next week, and then hopefully we'll progress into an accelerator. And kind of the goal for us is to get people educated within the space and learn
That's
about the
really cool.
amazing technology.
So what's your favorite blockchain? I'm putting you on the spot now.
I'm just going to actually say Starkware at the moment, which is obviously a layer two, just because they're at the leading front of kind of technology. Obviously, I'm non-technical, so what I do understand, I can really appreciate, but there's a lot I probably don't understand. And then generally, anything kind of that uses Solidity is kind of a big favorite. And then I think Solidity, I'm just a big fan of Ethereum and kind of what Ethereum is going to do for the space. And I think so anything kind of built on Ethereum is really exciting. I've also got a real soft spot for Polygon. That's on, I mean, their code and Solidity, and that's just purely because it was kind of the first protocol I actually interacted with, and it was kind of just, I found it like really engaging, and I enjoyed it a lot as well. But it's tough to nail down one thing at the moment.
Absolutely. There are a lot of good ones, and it's not like there is only black and white that this is good and this is bad. There are a lot of
Yeah.
things basis the requirement which people can choose in.
That's what makes kind of crypto so cool, and Web3, and it's all open source, so it's kind of it's there to be improved, and it's work together instead of work against each other.
Why should one join Web3 compared to Web2?
That is a great question. I think general atmosphere around Web3 is really, really cool. I think Web3 is going to be the future. It's kind of more a transparency in what is done. At the end of the day, we humans, so corruption and all of that is going to be a part of our lives. So kind of a more decentralized, governed by the code principle is what excites me about Web3. And that would be why I'd say jump to Web3. But then saying that also just there's issues in Web3 that I'm sure we'll jump into later. But so it's not all glitz and glamour, but it really is a cool space. I felt really, really welcome within Web3 community, which is probably
That's
not the same in Web2.
that's one of the greatest thing which even I have observed. Like Web3 is about communities, different communities coming together, building together. It's not like a central organization who is building together for everyone else. It's like communities building for themselves. So that's a great point which you mentioned. So do you feel that 5-10 years down the line, we will be at a stage where every company will be a Web3 company, company will be inherently using let's say blockchain technologies, and we will be then able to develop better features on top of that?
25% of the world's population don't even have a bank account. So I think it's going to be there'll be a huge transition in kind of adding functionalities to existing projects, to existing Web2 projects that may be kind of added in a decentralized aspect to it as well. But I think the main goal at the moment is trying to get the remainder of the 25% to get bank accounts and learn more about kind of internet as a starting point. I definitely think there's going to be a progression to adopt more blockchain technology in the future among Web2 companies. Without a doubt, you're starting to see in the UK we have banks called Revolut and Monzo. I don't know if you've heard of them. They are like online banks, and I mean they're starting to integrate kind of crypto into their system and blockchain, which is really cool. So we're starting to see a progression, but I think there's still issues that need to be solved within kind of the Web3 space before we can fully integrate into society.
Do you see any projects which are building in your recent hackathons and solving these problems?
Yeah, we do see a lot of it. There's a big drive among developers to be solving these real world issues. There's so many kind of issues within Web3 already that need to be solved before we can start solving real world issues.
Okay.
And you said, so maybe in 10 years, those projects, or 5 years, those are going to be the next big thing. But right now, that's not the case. It's almost like driving a car without petrol.
Can you name top 3 fuels? If these problems are solved, people can develop all kind of companies over top of it.
Top three is probably quite tough, but I think anything that revolves around dev tooling and improving dev tooling is kind of really, really important. Anything to do with education is really important. Getting to understand the technology behind it, and kind of making it a bit more simplified for your average Joe.
What's the biggest challenge in a decentralized YouTube kind of thing?
The biggest challenge is probably that YouTube's so great as is. This is probably gonna be on YouTube after this, and YouTube's amazing. Why would you want to change YouTube? Maybe you want to change it because, I don't know, you don't want to have to do the details when you commissions as well. But at the end of the day, YouTube's done such wonders for so many people in the world as well. Like it's a great like platform and launch pad for so many great entrepreneurs, great people who do podcasts. So it's kind of like the trust is already there in the system of YouTube among the users. And now you need to try and transfer all that trust of these millions of people and try and put it into Web3. Like, I mean, that task alone will take years, and it's so difficult to do. So you can't just be like, here's a decentralized YouTube, go take it. Maybe it's got to, if it comes from YouTube, it's maybe a different story.
There are
But trying to
security
now rival,
concerns as well, right? In that particular thing.
yeah, that's
I
kind
think.
of what I would say here.
Yeah.
So ideas great, execution great, but to get actual users, and that's what you need. Like we can build the most amazing projects, but if you don't have users, it's not going to work. You need people using your project and putting money into.
For those who are just starting, how can they actually get started into Web3?
I'm probably going to do some massive advertising here for my company.
Please go ahead.
No, I'm joking. But so we can kind of a company like Encode would be your number one. I'm talking now as a non-Encode. I'm an Encode employee, but like on a neutral ground. But a company similar to Encode, or Encode would be your best kind of platform for getting involved. So my number one tip would be, if you're currently working in Web2 and you want to get into Web3, go and learn tons about kind of Web3 and identify some sort of I guess coding language that you want to specialize in as a developer. So be it Rust, be it Solidity. I joked around about Solidity and Rust earlier, but I think those are kind of the two leading coding languages. No offense to the others.
Absolutely.
But I would either go down the Rust route or I'd go down the Solidity route. And then you can, once you're kind of knowledgeable, you can kind of transfer between, well, not transfer, but kind of learn the other and vice versa. But so go and learn, and there's such great kind of learning things on YouTube.
It's free,
Which
like
is actually
hours
another
and
reason
hours
why
of
YouTube.
content.
And it's Patrick Collins, he's amazing.
Yep.
Crypto Zombies, really, really cool kind of learning website as well. And then coming to Encode and going through our educational series, looking at our boot camps, they're completely aimed at that exact, is trying to get Web2 developers into Web3. But my number one bit of advice, and this is really crucial, is that if you're a developer in Web2, unless you are a millionaire, don't leave your job. Like, stay in Web2, and while you're in Web2, learn about Web3, and then slowly make that transition. Don't get out of Web2 and then say, I'm going to study Web3, because it's not going to, and study Solidity. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take you a couple months to get to where you need to be, and then you can make that transition and learn about the space as much as you can. And then from a non-technical standpoint, I think it's really exciting to see the likes of like Anthony and myself and the Encode team. A lot of us are non-technical, and we kind of have found our niche within kind of crypto. And obviously, I'm learning quite a lot of technical stuff at the moment, so I'll be naive not to. But the transition is, there are opportunities out there for non-technical people. There are awesome VCs
Can
out
you
there
name
that are looking for.
some job profiles for non-technical people?
So probably like a business development kind of role would be number one on the list. I take the COO of Footium, who actually, don't know if you've heard of Footium. It's kind of like a NFT kind of fantasy football. It's really big at the moment. It's cool, and they actually came through Encode as well. And the COO is a guy called George. He used to work at Encode. He's non-technical, and now he's the COO of kind of Footium. So I think that's where it'll come across. You'll probably come across probably like a more marketing role, business kind of development role, product development role, and actually kind of a lot of developers sometimes need yin and a yang. I would say you need someone who's non-technical and someone who's technical, and together you make the perfect combination, and it works out well. Because maybe at the end of the day, a lot of people don't want to sit behind their computers and code and hack away, while they actually want to be out there kind of forming relationships. And vice versa. Maybe some people don't want to be there out there forming relationships, and they just want to be behind their computer. So finding the right combination, and that's why we say come join our hackathons, even if you're non-technical. There's always an opportunity for a non-technical person to get involved, that just is the front person on the calls, chatting away, and kind of coming up maybe with the ideation. And there are a lot of developers out there that want that they want that kind of relationship with someone who's non-technical.
Any good project, if they achieve something really good, they have a successful run, they win the competition, what are the things that they do right?
So what they do right is, number one, they probably submit a project, which sounds quite funny, but I mean, we get tons of devs that come in with these amazing ideas, and then it gets to like crunch time, and none of them submit, and I get so angry because I'm like, you had such a good idea, all you need to do is execute it. And so number one would be submit your project, and then you got a good chance of being there. And then a good question to always ask if you're coming into the hackathon is, who's reviewing the projects? And if we go kind of Encode's reviewing the projects, then what's really important is a really good ideation, and having kind of a really, really neat UI that's catching to the eye, that's got a wow factor. But sometimes if you come and you ask and you go, is Tezos reviewing the projects, then it's a different game, because all of a sudden they'll look a lot more in depth into the actual smart contracts, and the UI maybe for them becomes a little less important. So it's really dependent on the hackathon and who's reviewing the projects. But so kind of a combination of the both is what you're going to win. You're going to win if you've got good smart contracts, and you're going to win if you've got a really neat UI and the ideations there. So as I said, trying to solve Web3 issues through Web3 projects are the ones that are going to be successful, because those are the ones that are adding the real value at the moment, that are investable in the future. While people that come in with, or hackers that come in with projects that are trying to solve real world issues, are the ones that are generally unsuccessful. And obviously I explained that earlier in the podcast, why. And I think developers that are able to articulate what they've built is really, really crucial. A lot of devs come in and they've got an unbelievable idea, but they really struggle to present kind of what they've built and really articulate in a simpler form to maybe non-technical people what's been done. And I think so devs that can articulate what they've built are golden. They're the ones that deserve to be paid the big bucks as Solidity devs or Rust devs out there one day, because they really are golden.
I think if a person is from non-tech background and he is able to sell their project, actually it's all about comes down to selling. So that's an opportunity for a non-tech guy to move into Web3 as well, right?
Yeah, completely. And if he's able to kind of really bring to light what the project kind of the core functionality and what are these kind of what your devs built, there's a huge opportunity there. So I mean, sales is going to be around for life. It's always it's been around for millions of years, and it's going to be around for another millions of years. So you're always going to need to know how to sell. You're always going to need to know to talk to people and form relationships, no matter what industry you're in.
What are the key mistakes which these devs do apart from not submitting the project?
Devs try and solve real world issues are the ones that are unsuccessful. So that's a big mistake that they make. A lot of devs come in with these ideas that are driven through YouTube videos, through what's trending on Twitter, and they actually don't follow what their passion is. For instance, I studied finance. I really appreciate DeFi. I'm a big DeFi man.
Nice.
I enjoy DeFi projects. So if I was a developer, I would go and I'd build something in the DeFi space, but not necessarily. There are a lot of kind of gamers out there. If you're a big gamer and that's what you're passionate about, go build something in the gaming sphere. If you big into NFTs, go build something in the NFT sphere. If you're a dev and you want to actually be irritated with how things are working on Tezos and you want to improve that kind of dev tooling, then go and do and build and something that's going to improve the dev tooling on Tezos. So really follow what your passion is, and a lot of developers unfortunately don't do that. They come in, they see the where the money is, and they want to go into that kind of sphere, and they're not actually educated enough to probably do that and understand the industry enough. Another common mistake that I find is a lot of kind of devs come in and they try and find a teammate straight away, and making that connection, especially in online hackathons, is really difficult. And they spend too much time wanting to find someone else to help, and they don't submit a project instead of actually just going there, building, and along the way you'll find someone, because there'll always be someone that can help with something. So I mean, if you like, yeah, so that's another issue. If you go in, don't try and force to find a teammate. Kind of let it happen organically by being on calls, and you'll soon find out in the chat room when you're having a workshop who's kind of interested, and you go, maybe I should join up with him. Then send them a message. Well, instead of a lot just come on and like, Jake, please can you find me a teammate? And I go, okay, I can, but like, it's so much better if you do it yourself and it's done organically than like me trying to like force you in somewhere, unless there is some once in a while there's a good match.
There is a
And
huge, so we will come back to mistakes, but on this point specifically, there is a
yeah,
difficulty. Like whenever we are trying to find teammates on such hackathons, it's really difficult to trust people because we are on Discord groups. We don't know the person in front of us. We don't know his real name, and it's really difficult to trust with this project and go share everything around this. Many people feel the same. What do you think about that?
yeah, I completely agree, and I completely think it's somewhere where the likes of an Encode or other hackathons that are running really, really do lack kind of just actually like what to do. I think that's more. We go there and we're like, how do we solve this issue? And we actually struggle to kind of solve this issue. And I agree with you. I mean, we've had an 8 week Solidity boot camp where you're in a group for that 8 weeks and you've got to build projects. I mean, after 8 weeks, you know your teammates pretty well, and still then there is a lack of trust among kind of teammates, and this teammate helps out, or this teammate said they're going to do this, they didn't do it, and real world life gets in the way sometimes, yes, but at the end of the day, you need to go look at their GitHub repo, and you got to go look at their LinkedIn and go, is this person going to add value? Do they look trustworthy? And if they do, add them on. If they don't have a GitHub repo, and if they don't have a LinkedIn up, probably don't like. There's probably a couple red flags there. So if you're looking for a teammate, go out there and say, "Oh, please, can you send me your LinkedIn? I want to learn a bit more about you." Or please send me your GitHub. I want to see what you built. And if they send it to you, and you kind of go through it to go, this guy's pretty active. He's coding a lot. I think he'll be a good value. Or if you go, this guy's done nothing over the last like year, then he's probably not going to be a good teammate. So that would be kind of the best way to identify a good teammate and to identify a bad teammate. It sounds bad, and it's so much based on probably a bit of bullshit, but like at the end of the day, it will it's the only way to kind of do it on an online setting.
Absolutely. So coming back to mistakes, anything else which you can think of?
I think a lot of people also kind of wait for the workshops to be done before they start building their projects. So what generally happens is we have week 1 is full of workshops. Week 2, kind of there's 1 or 2 workshops maybe, and then they only start building. And then by that, they've only got like 2 weeks left. And you go, but you actually had 4 weeks from the beginning. And to be fair, when we released the dates, like you probably could have started building a project already. Because 95% of hackathons, there's going to be an open track challenge where you can build whatever you want. The last thing was this is more kind of top end successful projects that are going to win the hackathon. I think a lot of people come in and think it's a 4-week period and I'm going to come and build this and then I'm going to blow the lights out and win that hackathon. Well, actually, there's got to be some sort of ideation going on before the hackathon started and be like, okay, this is actually what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And then the workshops are going to add value and not actually the workshops be the core of what I'm doing. And so if you know hackathon's coming up, you go, okay, cool, it's starting in a week. Let me sit down and actually think about what am I going to do. And knowing that I can, if I don't win this hackathon, I can submit it in another hackathon because there's so many going on and I can maybe win it there. So don't look at it as one hackathon. Look at it as like this project is my baby and I'm going to take it to the different hackathons instead of being, I'm just in it for this hackathon. Unless there's a certain bounty attached to the one hackathon that you maybe want to win.
I think, Jake, you mentioned really interesting points. So to summarize, what I understood was, in order for you, if you are a web 2 dev trying to build on web 3, don't leave your job, just start building right away. If you have a real world problem which you want to really solve and you think that web 3 can solve it better and there is a need over there, then start building or at least ideating on the project. Then find around what are the hackathons and what are the platforms which are coming up where you can demonstrate your project. Once the hackathon is live, just to start building, finding teammates is one thing which you can get help with the platform, but it's not necessary. So try to build your own community, try to get involved in different active communities to find people whom your vision or your ideology aligns with. And then on the time, whatever you have built, just submit it, give it a shot that okay, this is what I have built. Let's get some feedback on the project, get the cycle going of building and actually publishing the stuff. Is that my understanding correct?
That's a good summary.
Thank
Great summary.
Okay, so since you mentioned that you like DeFi, and I am also building on DeFi, so let's talk a little bit about that. What's the best thing which you see being developed in DeFi?
I'm a big fan of Superfluid. I don't know if you know Superfluid. Yeah, they're like payment systems within. It's kind of a platform to build on actually, and it's kind of and improving payment systems within the world. And so that's kind of something I'm really passionate about, is improving payment systems. I'm a big fan of Lens Protocol, which is more kind of like a social graph than actually but you can actually build DeFi projects on the social graph, which is quite cool. And that's built on Aave. A shout out to the Float Capital team. They're building something that's really cool as well. It's like a derivatives platform where you can kind of take a long or short position. I enjoy like Beefy Finance. I enjoy Curve Finance. So there's tons out there that's kind of actually being built. And then from more of a hackathon perspective, there was a really cool project that was built on Starknet. Well, yeah, on Starknet, kind of like a fixed rates kind of lending protocol. But something that I'd like to see being built is kind of more payment systems from a government standpoint that has implemented these systems into like governments coming from South Africa, where there's quite a lot of corruption. I think having a more transparent kind of payment system from governments would really kind of be, I think, the pinnacle of not maybe not DeFi, but maybe kind of Web3, which is something that I would like to see one day. Users need some sort of trust in their currency that they're using. And right now, unfortunately, they don't have that trust. This is from obviously we've got trust in it because we're in the space and we kind of appreciate the technology maybe behind a lot of kind of like a Bitcoin, for instance, or whatever. We can trust that because we maybe see it. But a lot of people that which is majority of the world, don't really trust kind of crypto as a payment kind of system of yet. So yes, the future's there, but how we get there could be interesting. I mean, we don't even have a stable coin, like a proper good stable coin for like the euro or for the rupee or for, I mean, there's only a good stable coin for
dollar.
For the dollar, which is kind of like, we first need to kind of solve those issues. And at the end of the day, you don't want to take away the actual value of your national currency, because that's what makes it kind of really important to kind of economics as a whole. So when we come in with all these kind of blockchain ideation or payment systems, it's cool. The actual system's cool, but you've got to stick to your kind of core fiat currency, which, having this huge globalized economy is always, it's going to be so difficult to have from just an economic standpoint.
Governments around the world are quite worried about CBDCs, like dollarization of their economy as a whole. So even your government must be worried. So that's a really good point, that we need to have our own currencies in place so that there is no one currency ruling everything. That's a bad scenario, I would say.
And that comes back to like general trade of resources and everything. So, but hopefully we can figure out a way. That would be really, really cool, is to have just full transparency on what's actually happening with payments, and hopefully that'll eliminate kind of corruption.
Very interesting point, actually.
Probably not fully informed of the whole like technical aspect of it as well, and that's something to consider to the listeners out there. Like, this is purely just my opinion on it, more than actual kind of understanding the technology.
Nothing in this video is a financial advice. We are just sharing our opinions. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. It's for you to decide. And please do your own research before investing and doing anything. We are just trying to share whatever we know, maybe even just a fraction of what is actually happening, but we just try to share whatever our perspective is. And I really liked it. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Thanks a lot for sharing those insights, and thanks a lot for especially guiding people on how they can build on Web3 and they can start their journey. So, for anyone who is just hanging by the cliff that, okay, should I jump or not? Just jump into Web3. There are a lot of opportunities, and jump with a parachute. Don't leave your job.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't keep it up. And it's easier than you think, so don't be intimidated.
Thank you so much if you have watched till now. It means that you have great deal of patience and you want to get things done. So that's the one of the very good things. So congratulations on that, and thank you so much for giving me time, and hope you liked it, hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something new, and see you on the other side of the journey if you haven't already jumped ships to Web3. So hit the like button if you liked it, hit the subscribe button, do share it with your friends and families. It helps me grow, and see you next time shortly.